Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greta Lundgaard, and it's my pleasure to facilitate this panel, Lessons Learned from a Summer Online. And I am joined by four very knowledgeable panelists, and they will introduce themselves with you. Starting with Janis.
My name is Janis Jensen, and I served as project director for the 2021 STARTALK student and practicum program at Kean University. Our student program is a 3-week global project-based learning program. It's a credit-bearing program, and it's designed for secondary students and early college level students at the intermediate and advanced level. Our program was an on-site program for 10 years, but really was a hybrid program because it included daily intercultural exchanges with partner school peers in India and Pakistan and invited experts, which really eased the transition from an on-site to an online program.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Betsy?
Hi, everybody. I'm Betsy Sandstrom, and I'm the program director for a teacher program this past year. We're located outside of Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia. We had been on site for also 10 years prior to this past year. And previous, we had a combination program, student and teacher program. But this year, we had only a teacher program. Teachers did have the option to take the course for credit, for graduate credit, that would lead towards certification. We had more participants than we anticipated and found it to be very successful. So we're really happy with our transition to online.
Welcome. Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Michelle Tan of Yinghua International School. It is a Chinese immersion school, and we are located at Kingston, Princeton, New Jersey. We have joined the STARTALK since 2017. We run a practicum program this year. In the previous year, it is called a combination program. We have seen as a leader, one of the leaders who helped train world language teachers, and we're very honored about that. And at the same time, for this year, our student program runs for third grade to high school students. I'm very happy and feel honored to share our learning experience and to learn from you all as well.
Great. Thank you. All right. Miao-fen.
Hi, I'm Miao-fen at University of Virginia. We have been running startup program for 13 years, since 2008. Like some of you, it's a long-standing history for something that we're doing. And I'm so glad to be connected with the STARTALK family as a panelist today. This year, we are running teacher demonstration program that has a new added component that we did not do it in the previous 12 years. That is, in addition to summer 3-week intensive program training, we also work with teachers to continue to the fall semester. So our nationally recruited 12 teaching fellows have opportunities to do online teaching right now. Yes, ongoing action this fall semester. And so far, we had already finished 2 very productive and rewarding online monthly meetings in August, September, and our third one will take place next Saturday. We are looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, so much. So the topic of our panel is lessons learned from online teaching. Last year, we had a great number of teaching programs, teaching opportunities as a virtual program online. This year, even though that number is changed, we still have loads of opportunities for hybrid programs, fully online. It's really changed the face of how instruction is delivered. So what we have here today, we're going to talk about 3 specific questions about what we've learned in online teaching. And we're going to use this as kind of a conversation and go back and forth and share these experiences. And the first question that we're going to address, and I'll throw the question out to the panel and they'll respond, is about lessons learned about creating this safe and supporting online learning environment. We have heard over and over, especially since COVID times have begun, that relationship with students and building community with students is the most important thing to do, particularly in an online learning environment. So, ladies, this first question, what lessons did you learn? What were the most important lessons or the most surprising lessons that you've learned about creating a safe and supportive online learning environment?
I can volunteer to go first.
Okay.
May I?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
thank you. Well, I would like to share with the audience and with everyone online here about 3 major things that we have learned, and would like to recommend these 3 points to everybody. And the first thing we have learned so far, particularly this year, because our teacher training is purely 100% online. The first recommendation that we learned to share with everybody is always try our very best to maximize the effects of pre-programmed social hour and group activities. Before the program, this summer's program officially started, we organized 2 pre-programmed social hour and grouping activities to get a head start for online mini teaching, and most importantly, for team building and strong rapport. So our 12 national teacher fellows had opportunities to get to know each other, to connect with the core teammate, and to get familiar with program goals, reconfirm our schedule, our timeline, daily and weekly requirements, so on. And we went through a very democratic process to finalize grouping in 3 groups, representing college teacher fellows, high school teacher fellows, and middle school teacher fellows. So I believe that all of our teacher fellows and my dear, highly respectable core teammates agree with me that we all feel very comfortable with the program, with the core team structure, and within their own group, and with all teaching the fellows too. And also, before the teacher fellows officially met at the onset of the program, we had already collected information about teaching fellows' self-assessment checklist and self-advocacy form and their individual goals that were fully considered to incorporate and align with our program goals, and also to meet, very importantly, individual teachers' individual goals. And the second recommendation, the second thing we want to highlight in terms of we learned, is to foster a positive growth mindset for teamwork. We aim to create anxiety-free and pressure-free, fear-free settings. And this is even more crucial for online teaching and learning. Every day during summer intensive training program, we started with 20-minute appreciative inquiry and mindfulness sections. Every day lasted about 20 minutes. As you might be fully aware of, mindfulness has recently emerged as an effective strategy for successful empowering language teaching. It is a contemplative pedagogy that helps improve physical and mental health by relieving stress, improving sleep, enhancing concentration, and reducing chronic pain. It does help a lot with our teacher trainees to cope with some certain level of online anxiety and tension. My very last recommendation for this question is always remember to do our very best to provide immediate and timely support for individuals and groups through modern ways of communication. Because our program has synchronous and asynchronous components. For synchronous training, we promptly answer teachers' questions by email by the program social platform line before we started the program.
Okay.
Zoom meetings and phone calls, etc. And for synchronous training, our mentors work very closely with college fellows, high school teachers, and middle school teachers, again, to provide their very best advice and support. And we also have a technology specialist on our team.
Oh, let's wait to talk about that one because we've got a specific question about that. So thank you for bringing that up. I will make sure that we get to that. So Betsy, tell us a little bit more, and then Janis, why don't you join after Betsy?
Sure.
Well, one thing that we thought to provide that supportive environment in the beginning, our program is sponsored by American Councils for International Education, and they also administer the Nestle Y program. So we used some feedback from students who transitioned from traveling on Nestle Y programs into a virtual Nestle Y program, and that was to make the program as much as it was like during a face-to-face program. So don't lose some of those really fun and supportive qualities that a face-to-face program has. And it came down to some things like don't give up on the T-shirt that you might make for your program, or a water bottle, or the books that you're going to provide for your program. So we took the time to order, and actually I want to thank Laura Terrell. I had some advice conversations with her about books to order for our teachers. And we just felt it was time when we had to relook at the budget to add in more postage, to connect with the people in our program a little bit more closely in different ways. So not only using the online platform. So before the program started, they received Russian candies from us for Russian tea time. They received a T-shirt so we could all be on screen together wearing our T-shirts. They received the books that we would be using during the program and that would help them, we hope, in their teaching beyond the program. So we kind of sent a care package to support in the beginning, but also to support the online actual virtual program. I'm also a team leader. I met with the program directors of my teams that had started already, and they really gave a lot of good advice about slowing down in the beginning with technology and really taking time. We used 3 platforms. We used Google Classroom, Zoom, and then, of course, Catalyst. And so we took time to build in our activities to model how to use Google Classroom. So the activity was to make them feel comfortable using Google Classroom if they had never used it before. And then we had activities to actually help them with Zoom. Even though we came together first moment on Zoom, we had people in the background. We had all their cell phone numbers ready to call, ready to talk, to help them. And you can't assume everybody knows every button to push on Zoom. We practiced things like this. So that was really to build that supportive environment and safe environment. We were trying to show in Google Classroom that there's a safe way to share materials before they would get to Catalyst. And we tried to make Catalyst a place where they could show off their materials. So we really tried to build the comfort zone as we build safety into the program.
Excellent. Good ideas. Janis, what?
Yeah, well, much like Mao and Betsy, I think one of the lessons we learned was the importance of the onboarding process. And I think that some of the strategies that they were describing were related to onboarding, which, as I assume the audience realizes, is preparing students for program experiences before the program. It eliminates some of those how-to questions from the outset. But it also serves an important social purpose since it facilitates the development of the learning community because they'll have shared knowledges and expectations from the very start of the program. There were basically 4 strategies I'd like to highlight briefly. The first was a pre-program survey. All of our students were required to take this survey, and it really gave important data to teachers. They found out more about the students' language experiences prior to coming to the program. And I don't know if I mentioned this, our program was geared for heritage language learners. It also informed the teachers about their personal interest and so forth. And ultimately, that tool served to assist teachers with building connections during the program. The second strategy was pre-program assessments. All of our students had to be at the intermediate or advanced levels in skill areas. And so our teachers gave informal OPIs, WPTs, and RPTs. And that enabled them initially to directly interact with each student prior to the program. Meanwhile, we found out what their proficiency levels were before the program in each area. But this also assisted us in personalizing learning based on individual needs, all right? The third was our student orientation, much like Mal and Betsy described. We had a day for student orientation where not only did we set out expectations, but we informed them of the organizational structure of each day. And if I may, we had a pre-Zoom session, a Zoom session, a debriefing of that Zoom session, new learning and application of learning. We also worked with them and informing them about the digital tools we were using and gave them access to tutorials for those tools and assigned pre-readings, which gave them background knowledge in terms of the thematic content we were addressing in the program. Finally, I wanted to say that we carefully planned every lesson, but we put a lot of special effort into the introductory lessons with the goal of making an intentional, sustainable first impression of welcoming and comfortable environment, in addition to establishing norms and ensuring that learners understood daily routines. Last area I want to mention was the importance of effective utilization of time. So we also incorporated free breakout rooms during the day where kids could hang out, get to know each other. And that helped when we were putting them in paired or small group work because they felt like they already knew who their partners were. We also focused on making a special effort to make effective use of our synchronous time so that the teacher was not using synchronous time to convey information that could have been conveyed asynchronously. Lastly, we built in time for office hours for interactions with individual students as needed on a one-to-one basis with the instructors.
Excellent. I mean, really nice, comprehensive plan. Y'all are hitting all of the right buttons. Michelle, share with us a little bit about your program and how you did this.
So I do agree to what they said. Our program, like I said, is a practicum program. Thinking that it's a practicum program, then we had our teachers trained way back in March, which is months ahead of summer. This way we can make sure that all our teaching staff are well prepared with their lessons, with one thing in mind, that they should learn how to adjust their lesson according to the students' prior knowledge or their interests to make it a truly student-centered one. So ahead of that implementation for the student program, teachers are being trained, and then while we implement the student program, we have all our teaching staff in the building running the online learning environment for the students inside the building. We intentionally designed it this way so that our teaching team can jump in and assist as needed, be it a technical issue or lesson plan that internet just didn't work or whatever. We made sure our teachers, even the assistant teachers, know what's going on, and they are actively involved with the lesson plan. This way they can adjust. One thing that we keep in mind at Yinghua is that we have to look through in the eyes of the learners. And that means learners as teachers, learner, and student as learners as well. We have to make sure the proficiency is taken into consideration. We put a lot of time preparing student packages we intentionally find hands-on products. Like, say, for example, this is the
Mhm.
Ping Mayong, the terracotta soldiers, right? We have all these things just to make sure that students' learning is fun and purposeful.
Mhm.
Um,
That this is a perfect segue. I'll let you start, Michelle, with my next question, because this was just such a perfect segue. I couldn't help it to our question number 2, because those of us who've never taught online or hadn't in the past, I know our first big scary moment was asking ourselves, how do we replicate a face-to-face, meaningful, relevant, connected community learning experience with what happens online? So our second question, and I'm going to let Michelle continue and start to answer this question with what she was about to say, I'm pretty sure, is how do we facilitate these meaningful learning experiences? This is my fear. My students are just going to end up in interpretive mode only, or my students are going to end up not really using the target language, because I'm going to use the target language and they're going to answer in their L1, their first language, or they're not going to be able to even have interpersonal or conversations. And some of you have already brought up the breakout rooms. So keep going with what you were saying, Michelle, and the others will listen and join in as we go. This idea of keeping online learning meaningful and those things we love about face-to-face, how do we embed those into the online platform? So continue, Michelle. I loved your idea of this hands-on projects that they can do.
Yeah, funny thing is, of course, after every startup program in the past years, right, we would ask students about what they love about our program and everything, right? And one thing that always come up is the snack and the food. So we made sure that even though it's an online learning,
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
students have their snack.
Mhm.
We would pack them with these Chinese snacks, and we have a schedule, when do they take it, and during that snack time they continue to talk about their snack, about the
Mhm.
taste, the preference, and everything.
Yeah.
So that's with the snack. Now with the other things, we made sure, because our theme for the year is the Silk Road trading. We made sure we pack them with some interesting Chinese cultural products that they can do and eventually sell
Ah.
and incorporate those learning in there.
Mhm.
We create a clear communication plan with the students when, like, setting the routines, a lot of classroom activities.
Mhm.
Breakout rooms are very, very important. We see it very beneficial to our students, especially when we need to differentiate certain students. We would make sure that these students who need extra help would go to a certain group, and the teacher will be there to assist them while the other students are doing their other stuff.
Mhm.
Um, a timer is always
Mhm.
helpful. Good quality videos
Mhm.
that are
Okay.
used by professionals instead of asking the teachers to reproduce them.
Mm.
Mm.
Um, Having enough teachers to move around is very helpful as well.
Mhm. Who has some other suggestions, other ideas of what you implemented that you'd like to share with our audience?
I can go. So I think for us, we start very
Okay, Betsy's having some weather issues. Betsy's going to come back to us. Okay, who'd like to pick up for Betsy while her weather hopefully passes?
I'm very happy to pitch in.
Okay,
I'd like
okay.
to echo what Michelle just mentioned. When she mentioned now the statement that students love food everybody was laughing. And
Mhm.
Michelle was running a student online program, and we are running teacher demonstration program. And as you know, that for purely 100% online teaching training program, we cannot use STARTALK funding to
Mhm.
pay lunches and snacks.
Sure.
You know, it's important to be human oriented, compassionate, particularly during the pandemic and post-pandemic era. What I did was that I used my individual research funding that I allocated from my own unit, English World Languages, to invite our 12 teaching fellows
Mhm.
to order something they like from a website. It's called the nuts.com. I'm not trying to,
Sure.
no, yeah. And then it ended up very well because our teachers really appreciated that.
Uh-huh.
And then after each individual teacher order their favorite snacks from that designated website, and then we shipped their order items to their home address. And after that, we appreciated, warmth, regards, a lot of warm, kind notes that made me feel so good about it. I felt that I was doing the right thing. Yeah.
Excellent.
That's something about, it's not quite heavy. It doesn't add too much weight to the success program, but it adds some, human touches, some spices and joy that might have enlightened and warmed people's heart. And after that, I would also like to continue to answer the second question that
Mhm. Some meaningful learning activities. How did you make those learning activities meaningful?
that's right. Yeah, I would like to respond to this question, in two aspects. The first lesson is about what we did about planning at the administration level. And the second thing is about what we planned at the academic level. In terms of administration, it started the very beginning of program planning. In early February, we started to recruit teaching fellows nationwide.
Mhm.
And just like what we did in the past years, our teachers need to submit their online application with 30 items, including their personal statement and their teaching video. After that, we interviewed potential candidates through one-on-one Zoom meetings. I think that individual Zoom meeting is so important because we want to make sure that individual teachers' professional goals closely and perfectly align with our program goals. In the past years, we found that some teachers submitted several applications to different startup programs, and they forgot the target goals of our program. So I think Zoom individual interviews helps a lot.
Okay.
And also, another thing I think I just mentioned in response to the first question, asking teachers to complete their pre-programmed self-assessment checklist and self-efficacy form to adjust their individual goal settings is also a very important step. And then they allow us to analyze teachers' real needs, their individual goals, and we also discuss with core teammates to make sure that we are able to adjust our curriculum pace and so to meet their individual needs. And about the planning that we did to make sure that we meet our academic standards. I think, for teacher training program, it's so important to make sure that our training will incorporate theory and practice. And we, as the core teammates, mentors, trainers, program directors, need to do good modeling.
Mm.
So what we did was that we cannot stress enough how important it is to do PD, professional development. So we started to do PD 1 year before this year's program. And I, as a key trainer, curriculum developer, and program director, even rehearse my PowerPoints every time. So that set a good model, set the right tone for my entire working team to do that. Yeah, and because we are doing the modeling, and we want to make sure that the way that we presented our training materials can translate into the best practices and effective strategies and principles that our teacher fellows would do in summer training through mini teaching, peer teaching, and also most importantly, their fall teaching in real classrooms.
Excellent. Well, I see Betsy's back. So Betsy, let me let you go ahead, and then Janis is going to share her ideas, what she's learned.
Okay, great.
So I'm sorry I missed everybody there. I got kicked out. But what I had started to say was what our team didn't want to do was kind of sit back and say, oh, we're extremely experienced STARTALK program instructors, program directors, and also we are 3 high school teachers who were very comfortable teaching virtually from the year of the pandemic. But we wanted to be sure we were going to provide a really high quality online program because it would be the first we were doing for teachers. So we included a lot of teacher training, professional development for our staff prior to the program. And we met with experts in the field and spent a lot of time just reviewing for ourselves what best practices would be and how those would work in a virtual environment. And we found it really helpful working with Jennifer Eddy for a good number of hours on even the right way to present the material. And she always surprised us by making us just go a little bit deeper and just bringing to the front things that, you've learned before, but kind of forgot about. And then I have to say, Greta, and this is all kudos to you too, GRR worked best for us. Absolutely. I have to say, hands down, just following that technique and every day as we planned saying, what is the I do? And we had to identify it and say, how long is it lasting? What's actually happening? Who's doing what? And then we do, and you do together was really, really, really important before we got to the you do alone. And so following that seemed to be the technique that worked really well for us.
Excellent. Thank you. Janis.
Yeah, piggybacking from what Betsy said, you really can't strongly emphasize more strongly the importance of professional preparation. And in addition to training for teachers, one strategy our teachers embraced was actually doing some of the online tasks themselves, using the new digital tools to anticipate, before assigning them to students, to anticipate any problems and how to address them. So just want to mention that tidbit. They actually walked through the process themselves. But in terms of lessons learned for planning for online experience, from our perspective, we engaged in a very close examination with the practicum teachers of the lesson content that had been planned for our hybrid program. And we reduced the content, keeping in mind the main ideas and understandings that would foster in-depth learning and critical thinking in a targeted language. All of that said, that had to be in meaningful, productive, digital interactional context. So that was the key focus. A shout out again for Google Classroom. Someone mentioned we also use Google Classroom. Our motto meant fewer clicks means less looking for materials, more time for active engagement and learning. So, addressing that meaningful piece. Going to facilitating online experiences, we embraced many of the strategies we used in our hybrid program, but we even focused more on clarity and transparency, informing learners of the purpose of the task. When they know the purpose of what they're doing, they're likely to put more effort to it if it's meaningful to them, right? Using rubric criteria, of course, and task exemplars. We found this to be a great strategy. And we presented the students with task exemplars and asked them to use the rubric, to actively engage with the rubric, all right, and evaluate the tasks before they actually engaged on doing a task. Another shout out for gradual release of responsibility. We found that to be a wonderful strategy. Lots of student choice, especially in project-based learning. They take ownership of what they do really when they have more choice. Differentiating, definitely needed, but we try to differentiate not only by content, but process and product. Lots of peer assessment, a lot of peer assessment as a tool for evaluation. Once again, higher order thinking. They evaluated their peers' presentational products and how to defend their assessment of whatever rating or evaluation they gave them. Finally, I wanted to mention building in ample time for reflection and sharing perspectives about new learning in each lesson. And we did this through daily blog posting and required students to respond to a minimum of 2 other blog posts. So those are a few of the strategies.
Excellent. And you, again, y'all are making my job very easy because Janis, I'm going to go back to a couple of things you said there at the end, talking about peer assessment and defending their feedback to their peers, and also this idea of reflection as feedback. Here's question number 3. And Janis, I'm going to let you continue on that conversation and expound on the 2 items you mentioned at the end. So question 3 for us, what lessons did you learn about providing feedback in the online learning environment? This is a major thing because it's just that added time, isn't it? Unless, as Janet suggested, building this kind of feedback into the learning process. But Janet, start us off here. Talk about feedback. How you've given us 2 examples. Are there more that you used, and how did that actually work?
Sure. We really realized the importance of the ongoing, targeted, timely, descriptive, informative feedback, but emphasizing, of course, improvement and growth. We provided feedback for all aspects of language learning, the written, the oral, and the intercultural. Remember, we had those daily intercultural exchanges. And feedback was also provided by multiple sources occurring through the lessons and programs. For example, they often presented their presentational products to partner school peers and invited experts during synchronous Zoom sessions. And that was a very rich exchange in terms of giving and receiving feedback. They received feedback by teachers during office hours and by peers during peer coaching or mentoring. And once again, through peer evaluation of presentational products. And also in response to blog posts. We like to include as well, from the teacher perspective, lots of cognitive probes to promote further reflection. We also always ask learners to identify the type of feedback or advice they were seeking, because we felt that feedback students give is as important as the feedback they get. Last thoughts. We really, a real lesson learned here. We saw that such types of multiple feedbacks addressing all skill areas promotes not only better understanding of a task or goal, but also the process or the way to achieve the goal. And most importantly, promotes self-analysis of their learning style and learning strategies. So you know what you're doing, you're increasing student metacognition and really our goal to develop more self-regulated language learners. Lastly, I think developing a culture of feedback really fits in nicely in tandem with creating a safe and a supportive environment where kids feel valued and empowered. But I have to say, the effort does require a consistent modeling, repetition, and a commitment to
Yeah.
both the giving and receiving feedback.
Oh yeah, sometimes feedback is the thing we let go of when we run out of time. Michelle, have you found that to be true? What models of feedback did you use in your program? Unmute yourself, honey. Go ahead.
Sorry. We always see, I do agree what Janice has mentioned, and we see feedback can be a second chance for students to learn about themselves.
Mm,
Peer feedback encourages them to work harder. Self-feedback on reflecting the work that they have done, keeps them going. Um, we base their feedback on rubrics, or what we call as our can-do statements, right? They set their goals, and then, but we understand that when there are certain can-do, it has to also be flexible. There are certain things that they might not be able to reach certain goals. It is okay. Giving them that positive feedback is very important. We made sure that teachers would give positive feedback to every student every day in different sessions. Um,
mhm.
One thing also that we stress is that we would allow students to discuss and provide respectful feedback to one another, and they have to agree to disagree.
Mm,
Um, those
that's
One thing that is helpful for the novice level is when teachers would give feedback through making it as an audio feedback, because they hear the teacher saying the things the right way instead of
ah,
writing it down, or giving the, because of the proficiency level, you don't want to give that feedback in an English, right? You want it in Chinese, so you can make it as an audio feedback.
good point. That's a good suggestion. Miao-fen, can you add to that a little bit? What's your ideas?
Yeah, thanks to Janis and Michelle. You are talking about what you learned through running the student online program. And I'm going to go back to my teacher demonstration program to talk about what kind of feedback and through what kind of means that we provided feedback to our teacher trainees. I think the very important principle that I have kept my mind is always start with what is working well.
Yeah.
And what can be done better. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we seem to focus on what were the problems, and that's face the problem, fix the problems, and come up with resolution. But now the whole mindset and ideology only change totally differently. Always start with positive mindset. For teacher training program, it's sometimes very sensitive when we give feedback to teachers. It's hard for teachers to take in wholeheartedly. So I think that works very well. And the second thing is that, for all online programs, either for teacher training or for student learning or for the hybrid, for the combination of teacher and student programs, I think we always want to be precautious about what kind of technology, tech tools we want to incorporate to fulfill our pedagogical goals. And I frequently discuss this with my teammates and technology specialists, and we always remind ourselves, less is more, but not vice versa. And in addition to the core principle, less is more, we also wanted to keep consistent in terms of a certain tech tool that we ask teachers to submit their reflections. During our program, our teachers consistently use Padlet to submit their reflections. And so far they have done 5. And in addition to Padlet, our teachers can easily transfer their reflection from Padlet to Catalyst there was a central platform for teacher reflections created by STARTALK Central. So we tried to streamline the process and make it so easy for our teachers, but not to overwhelm it.
Yeah.
I think one more thing I'd like to talk about, kind of, smart way to recycle and revisit teacher reflections is that I'd like to share one example that we did, and I think we did it quite nicely because we could see how positive that the teachers, like it. In order to recycle and revisit teacher reflection, we incorporated their reflections entries and created a communicative task because we want to honor and well recognize each teacher's trainee's work on reflections. And we created a communicative task called Famous Teachers Model in 1 minute. In Chinese, it's called 名师1分钟. That was done in a synchronous training section. And each of the 12 teacher trainees took turn to present the highlights of the reflection in 1 minute. It was timed.
Oh,
and then
good.
that was followed by peers' comments and questions. It was so interactive. So, that example is a new idea, is a new text design that I feel so happy about it.
Yeah, that sounds so fun. I mean, that what a great idea. Thank you. I wrote that down. That's wonderful. Betsy, share us your ideas on how do you collect or give feedback in your program. Auntie, there you go. You're muted.
All right. This year in our program, we used the teacher folio tool that's available on STARTALK. So we really relied heavily on STARTALK tools and resources this summer. And we went right back to reflection with those. So as teachers used the tool, they would work in pairs. They would hear a presentation by a teacher, and then they would work in breakout rooms in pairs to complete the teacher folio tool. And as they were doing that, we found they were, like Janis said, going right into reflection on their own, and already I think evaluating their own for peer review, because as they evaluated someone else's using the tool, it was a good reflection moment for themselves. And then they would talk to each other about their own work there. So that reflection piece was really good. And it also hit a little bit of, our program was a teacher overview program, which made it a little tricky because they weren't actually producing a product, but they did in a different way. So in doing that, we had to find out really if they learned the topics, if they learned the terms. And so the way to do that, we went to infographics, since STARTALK principles were so clearly displayed through infographics. Then they could create their own infographic on showing us something they learned throughout the program. And it was kind of a final product of, for all the teachers. And as they went through that, we could kind of, what Michelle said, you repeat correctly the way to do something, and we would gently do that. But the very first thing we did with the teacher tool in training them how to use it was let them review a lesson plan of mine from my classroom or from my, so we took big risks as program director, lead instructors, putting our own work out there. And as you know, there's always something, right? Somebody always has a different way of looking at something. So it was a humbling moment for us in the beginning, but we thought we needed to put ourselves in their shoes to feel what was it going to feel like in a virtual environment to have somebody critique your work. And that really guided us on best ways to do it for them.
Oh my gosh, what a wonderful testimony and a way to wrap up this panel. Thank you so much, ladies, for being vulnerable, for sharing your successes with us. We know that you had loads of things that sometimes we would rather go to the basement, right, and talk about what didn't work well. And I appreciate Miao-fen bringing that up. So thank you for going to the ceiling, right? For going to the roof and talking to us about the great things that you've done. Lots of good ideas. Really love our reflection ideas. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you, audience, for being with us. And we look forward to visiting with our StarTalk family again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.